So right here, we're going to show you Danica Patrick's interview from the Sage Steele show, where she speaks on her ex, Aaron Rodgers. Now, if people don't know, Danica Patrick is the the female NASCAR driver that made history for, I guess, being the first woman to do that. I guess that's all she got to show for. I don't even know if she won anything, but her and Aaron Rodgers were a thing at one point, and they broke up, I think, last year or 2 years ago. I don't remember. And people that probably don't know, Aaron Rodgers, he's always been a bachelor. So right here, reading from the caption, it says, Aaron Rodgers' ex-girlfriend, Danica Patrick, says her relationship with Rodgers was emotionally abusive and left a trail of blood. It was sudden. She says it was sudden, and the nature of the relationship was emotionally abusive. Danica calls it the most painful experience of her life. Why? Because she didn't get chose. But anyways, let's watch it from her perspective.
What's the most amount of pain you've experienced?
The breakup with Aaron in 2020.
Why?
Because it was sudden, and because the nature of the relationship was emotionally abusive, so that wore me down to nothing. Everything was torn to bits. It leaves a trail of blood. I don't think I'm saying too much, earth-shattering stuff. There's been enough out there.
There has been, especially recently, and
but it gave me the greatest gift.
Right.
The greatest gift, which was myself. It gave me the greatest gift of how much I needed to show up for myself. The only time I've ever been lonely was when I was in a relationship where I was furthest from myself. So the closer you are to yourself and who you are, the happier you're going to be.
Yeah. Cope. You didn't get chose. I lost myself. I was led further from myself. And it was all about him because he was emotionally abusive. She's saying all of this now while Aaron Rodgers is like now at the down, towards the down spiral of his career. She didn't say nothing in 2020 while he was still, one of the best QBs in the game. Now she trying to rain on his parade. Oh, there's enough stuff out there. Come on, miss. But I would expect nothing less. And for her to even use the term emotionally abusive, or was it emotional abuse, is what I've been trying to tell y'all. Women like this, they use the term emotionally abusive or like verbal abuse, just so when people ask them about their past relationships, they can just say, oh, I was in an abusive relationship. And most men are not going, or most people in general are not going to question like, well, what do you mean by abuse? Oh, well, he would say things to me. I mean, it wasn't, you'll be like, okay, did he put his hands on you? Because that's the first thing you think when you hear abuse. Did he put your hands on you? Did he force himself upon you against your will? And then they start stuttering and they start fumbling, and they're like, oh, well, he didn't physically abuse me. He said things to me, and you're just like, oh, okay, this is what they call verbal abuse. But they're not going to say verbal abuse or emotionally abusive. They're just going to say abuse. So right here, let's do a replay on this one. Let's do a replay on this just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
What's the most amount of pain you've experienced?
The breakup with Aaron in 2020.
Yeah.
Of course, because that's the man with the most clout she's ever dated with. So of course that's going to be the most devastating breakup she's ever had.
Because it was sudden, and because the nature of the relationship was emotionally abusive, so that wore me down to nothing.
Oh yeah. Miss, I remember all them talks you was having. You had Aaron Rodgers on your little podcast talking about nothing and religion and how his whole religion is holding y'all back. And nah, you guys seemed on the same page when it came to everything. I don't want to hear all this stuff now. People were criticizing you and Aaron Rodgers on your takes on religion and all that. You was acting like you knew better than everybody else. Come on now. Like, miss, you gotta take that L. I don't want to hear this emotionally abusive stuff. Especially you ain't saying nothing for the past, 5-6 years? And now you're saying this stuff? Stop it. Please.
Everything was torn to bits. It leaves a trail of blood. I don't think I'm saying too much, earth-shattering stuff. There's been enough out there.
There has been.
And this, you need to be sued for slander. But like I said, women can just slander your name because there's really no repercussions. And here you have Sage Steele up top. Low key, I think she knows she's full of, Danica Patrick is full of caca. Right? People were trying to give her credit. I guess Danica Patrick, last year when people were asking her, what do you think about women in the NASCAR game? And she basically gave her, conservative viewpoint on it. And she was given a lot of credit, but I didn't really give her much credit on that because at the end of the day, she's a woman. Like women are not really conservatives or liberals. They're pro whatever benefits them the most. That's it. All this conservative stuff, this liberal stuff, these are just what you call these placeholder terms. They don't mean nothing, especially to women. And if Sage Steele was a real conservative, she would call her out for using liberal talking points like emotionally abusive. What the hell is that? By the way, let's do something. Let's do a little thought experiment. Let's look up the term emotional abuse. Let's do that. Let's do this. Emotional abuse definition. Okay. Okay. Let's share the tab. Let's share this tab real quick. Emotional abuse is a form of abuse that involves the repeated and intentional use of words and actions to control, frighten, isolate, or denigrate another person, causing psychological harm and distress. So this is what Aaron Rodgers was doing to you, ma'am? Or is the emotional abuse just him breaking up with you? So she just considers that abuse because the action of him breaking up with you was the abuse. Is this what we're saying now? Okay, so they say key characteristics of emotional abuse. They say pattern of behavior is not an isolated incident, but a consistent pattern of mistreatment, control and manipulation. The abuser aims to control and manipulate the victim's thoughts, feelings, and actions. Psychological harm. It can cause significant psychological damage, affecting self-esteem, mental health, and overall well-being. It sounds like they're describing Jada Pinkett. But, yeah. You're describing Will Smith's wife. But anyways, examples of emotional abuse tactics: verbal abuse, humiliation and criticism, gaslighting, isolation, emotional blackmail, control and surveillance, withholding affection. Yeah, these symptoms or these examples of emotional abuse tactics, when we talk about verbal abuse, humiliation and criticism, gaslighting, isolation, emotional blackmail, control and surveillance, withholding affection. Let me highlight that last part. Now, technically, this is really gender neutral, but let's keep it a buck. This is very specific to one demographic of. Let me stop. But anyways, I'm glad we're bringing up these terms now. This is very interesting stuff.
Especially recently, and
but it gave me the
sad,
greatest gift,
right?
the greatest gift, which was myself. It gave me the greatest gift of how much I needed to show up for myself.
Yeah, I was able to find myself. After this devastating breakup, I was able to go on my spiritual journey. And what is it with these hoes? And they always got to talk about what journey they're always on a journey, on some spiritual awakening, some journey, like their Avatar, the Last Airbender, like they like their Guru Patik. They need to stop this.
The only time I've ever been lonely was when I was in a relationship where I was furthest from myself. So the closer you are to yourself and who you are, the happier you're going to be.
Yeah, she's full of cap. This woman is full of cap. Let me look at some of these comments. This is funny stuff. He said, what was it? He said, why is it every girl is in an emotionally abusive relationship after a breakup? Facts. He said, Aaron Rodgers out there calling out BS. Of course, a hit piece of him comes out. Does anyone actually believe women? Facts. Somebody says, a women who claim emotional abuse just don't like having their BS called out by their man. Facts. Somebody said emotionally abusive equates to I couldn't manipulate him. And really what that means with her, she couldn't get him to do what she wanted him to do, meaning him put a ring on her finger. That's all. That's all that is. Somebody said, again, they're all victims in their own movies. Somebody said, women talk about the stupidest ish imaginable. But yeah, this is the average conversation with broads, especially when they come together and start talking about men. This is the stuff that they talk about, just complete nonsense. But anyways, This is all I have to say for this. I am sorry. I feel sorry for Aaron Rodgers because he is, he's basically about to retire. He's basically one foot out the door, Brett Favre style. History repeats itself again. And now that Aaron Rodgers is like one step out the door, now you have all these people that never liked him in the first place starting to, crap on his name. You got exes now talking about, oh, he left. What did she say? He left a trail of blood. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, miss? But we're in conservatives. Like I said, we're conservatives like praising her for saying that women need to earn their spot in the NASCAR thing. And oh, you see, she thinks like one of us. No. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.